I titled this, Who's Minding the Store? And I'll tell you the origin of that question. I was asked this as a young, green, wet behind the ears responder, and I didn't totally understand it until I took on a greater role in the fire department and realized we needed more emergency management around here. So some of this is perspectives from me as a responder, some stories from me as a responder, as well as like what we can do to be our own best responders for things. So, but why should you listen to me? Well, I'm just the emergency manager or the emergency management coordinator for the City of Ashland. I was born in Ashland. I've got generations in the ground here, a few grandparents and great-grandparents. I didn't think I would end up here, but it just kind of happened. Life happens. I did grow up in Alaska, which that was a lot of fun, and then gradually made my way back down through higher education to come back to Ashland. I got hired on with Ashland Fire and Rescue in 1990. That was supposed to be a temporary job. I had good test scores. I was going to be a doctor or a lawyer, and the fire department job was to give me some trade skill. I could finish my degree at Southern Oregon State College at the time, and then move on. But I stuck around for 30 years. I was first on the scene of the Almeda Fire, and we were facing an opponent that was way bigger than our capacity to deal with. We were overmatched from the very first minute, and yet we had trained all our lives to try to do the best we could against this impossible thing. That fire in itself informed my decision in a couple of years to change to emergency management, because during that, we gave everything we had, stood up for 36 hours straight, then responded to the open chain fire, which was also taking homes of our friends and neighbors in the valley. And we weren't enough. And there wasn't enough going on at the emergency management level. We'll talk a little bit about that. And we'll talk about how each of you can do more in your own realm with your own capacities and your own agency to be better prepared for these events. Finally, lucky me, I got to be Ashland's first emergency manager, so I'm still building the program, and we're doing pretty well. I've got two amazing daughters who went through the school system here. One's at university now, so it's the expensive years for me, which is why I'm freelancing like this for free, because hopefully. You know, I want to live in the Pacific Northwest. That's the acronym PNW, forever. And I want to reduce my own and everyone else's fear about what happens every season now. And when I say every season, I'm not just talking about fires, because it seems like now every season we have some kind of new weather event that we're like, wow, this was way bigger and way worse than we expected. All right, let's keep moving though. So who's minding the store? The guy that's got a little red circle around his head here is one of the early Ashland Fire Chiefs of the 90s, is Keith Woodley. He was a good chief. And when I was a new medic trying out my paramedic skills, we had a very busy day at Ashland Fire and Rescue. And a very busy day meant that we had 4 911 calls kind of back to back. Nobody was in the station, everybody was out running calls. I got to run all 4 too, and I was feeling pretty good about myself because we made a real impact during those calls to help people out, to get them to the hospital. And I'd come back to the station and like everybody's tired because the old Ashland firefighters, that was a lot. For me, I was just hungry, and so we're talking, we're chatting about what we did, what we could do better, and Keith Woodley is standing there looking at me, and he's like, well, that's great for you, Kelly, but who was minding the store? Meaning, who's left? Who's left to respond to the next 911? Who's left to respond to the incident when there's no responders left? Okay, so who's minding the store? If you get us back on the slide there. You are. All of us are. I'm not a responder anymore. I'm an emergency manager, but I'm also minding the store, which means we're the ones that are left when everyone is responding. All the police officers, all the firefighters. One of our fire chiefs had this thing that he thought was funny to say. He's like, Ashland's a very unique community and it's very special. Everyone in the town thinks they deserve at least one firefighter for themselves. Every town of 20,000, they want 20,000 firefighters as well, which is impossible. It'll never happen. And so it's on us to get a little better prepared. So I talked about the Almeda Fire, 36 hours, and then a few of us, myself and 2 other Ashland firefighters, the very next morning after the wind stopped, after the Almeda, the worst part of the Almeda was over, as in the fire part of it. There was much worse to come later with the recovery efforts. Yet the open chain fire was burning, and a few of us got calls in the morning from regional chiefs, and they were like, hey, we need help. The open chain fire is eating homes close to Butte Falls, and it's going to take more. So we fought fire for another week, and that was too much. I've talked to lots of other responders around the state. There were 12 other major conflagrations going on that weekend. The Almeda was not just the only event. All over the state of Oregon was on fire in big fires, and responders from larger departments with lots more resources, they also had to stay on their feet for more than 36 hours. And they all said, wow, we're not enough. We're not going to be able to stop these things. What can we do? Okay, well, let's talk about what we can do. What can I do? Well, you can do the pre-work and you can prepare. Now's a good time. We're past our big winter event. Anybody here remember the winter event we just had a couple of weeks ago? That was fun. And not necessarily expected. What's our normal winter, like if we get snow on the valley floor, what happens later in the day? It goes away, right? No, not this time. And we've had storms like this before, but nothing that lasted quite so long. So we're doing a bunch of talking at the city level too, like if this becomes the normal, if this weather event becomes the normal that we get every year, then how do we better prepare to get the roads plowed, to make sure that people have access to water, food, shelter, warmth, all those things. All those discussions are happening now, and I get to help with that. So let's not get sidetracked on that. Let's talk more about fire. And then I have just an extra thing I call playing the long game, which is just some philosophy going. So doing the pre-work, what does that look like? For me as an emergency manager, and even for you as a citizen, these are some of the strategies, these are some of the forward-thinking things that I do, but you can too. You want to think about your evacuations and your routes. How are you going to get out of the way of this thing that's coming? You're going to try to manage the information. Where do you get your information from? What's a trusted source? Who else are you talking to and connecting with? Because it takes more than just you trying to solve your own problem. It actually takes, like if there was ever a time that the cliche, we need each other, is so true. It is right now, because these weather events that we're having are way bigger than any one of us. So connecting with people, start managing your information. And then finally, resource management, that's my fancy term for it, but it's what are you prepared? How long are you prepared? What happens if you're in your house for a while, like the winter storm, or if the fire passes you by, but there's other areas that are devastated, like how ready are you to sustain with water, food, with help for others, with transportation even? Go ahead and next. But let's talk about evacuations and routes. My two lessons for you is learn your zones and learn your routes. The second one is there's 3 evacuation levels in Oregon, so when you receive an evacuation notice, you know what a level 1, 2, or 3 actually means. Ashland in 2021, with the help of a grant and a consulting company, made the first ever in the Rogue Valley evacuation zones. Why do we need evacuation zones? Well, evacuation zones were used by California fire departments because they were burning every year. Way back in the Oakland Hills fire, they said we need to kind of divvy up the land into puzzle pieces because we can't totally predict where the fire is going to start and then where it's going to go. And so if we do get a fire in one area of town, say the Almeda Fire, which started, right around here, we don't necessarily need everyone in town to get out. We just need the ones that are closest and that could be impacted to get out of the way. So it's a way of divvying it up. It's a strategic tool. So when we did that, a lot of communities in the Rogue Valley were like, oh, what do you need those for? Like, we don't need those. But because of additional fires and we could see that this strategy worked, this year something big kind of happened. We partnered with Jackson County Emergency Management, Medford, Talent, Phoenix, all the other communities, and they adopted zones. Now, this is new-ish information. They published these in May of 2024. If you haven't heard of it, it's fine. There's a lot of information coming out of the fire hose that you're forced to drink every day, right? So forgive yourself if you didn't know it. But if you did, know that when you want to find the zones you're frequently in, because maybe you traveled to Talent, Talent has their own zones now. What's different about these that you see besides ours? Real easy. So they use a 3-letter and a 3-number thing, where in Ashland it was like zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. Actually, if you use their maps, you'll see an ASH for Ashland and then a 001, 002. When they approached us and said, hey, do you want us to help renumber those? I was like, no, we're 1 through 10. That's Ashland. We were first. Can we keep those? And they were like, okay. So we did. So my encouragement to you is learn the zones you live in, learn the zones you travel frequently to. You know, one of my favorite grocery stores is in Zone 6. I know I'm in Zone 6 quite a bit. Most of my public service paycheck goes to that grocery store to feed my teenagers. I also know that I travel to the university sometimes because I do some work with them, and to all the different schools. So think about where you travel in town or around town. If you're downtown and you're on the uphill side, you're going to be likely in Zone 3? Yes.
No, we're not supposed to ask.
There's always one.
This is not about what you're saying. This is about what's happening on that screen.
Yeah.
It's going back and forth, and it's completely jarring.
When it shows me. So they are recording this, and for recording purposes, like on a YouTube thing, sometimes if they just see this, then they kind of need to see a human now and then. So.
Okay, I'll try and put up with it.
Yeah, we'll try and work with it. If you're on the downhill side, you're going to be in Zone 8 if you're downtown. We do have street signs that we created last year too. I managed to get funding for 50 of them, so I put 5 in each zone, hopefully in the most visible places along the road, so that as you go into a zone, you'll see, oh, this is Zone 4. I didn't know that. And so if you do receive an evacuation notice or some notice and it says, hey, what's happening in Zone 4 is this, and you can be like, oh, what zone am I? Oh, I'm in Zone 3, I'm good. Or I'm adjacent to it. All right, well, let's keep talking about next evacuation thing. So Oregon State Department of Emergency Management adopted a 3-level evacuation notice thing. Not all states, not all areas of the United States have a 3-level system. In some places, I was even told that a green, yellow, red response is like you can't do that for some reason. It's not allowed. And I'd never heard of that before, but okay. In Oregon, we have level 1, be ready, level 2, be set, and level 3, go now. They have changed the language on these before because it used to just be ready, set, go. But they found that with areas that experienced a fire and then needed evacuation notices, people wouldn't just go when it said go. People wouldn't just get set when it said set. And so they put little action words in there. Be ready, be set, go now. A timely thing too. And that apparently, when they gathered all the data of who actually left when they received it, they said go now. That motivates. Whenever I write an advisory that gets sent out to your phones, if you've signed up for alerts, or when I write a serious message like an evac notice, I'm making sure to be very clear so that it doesn't leave a lot for interpretation. Even though, you know, when we receive those, there's probably going to be some time that we're going to be like, wow, is this real? And hey, did you get what I got? And what are the neighbors doing? And can I see it? There'll be some verifying that needs to go on for these things. We can talk a little bit about that. All right, so the trick with these is, what's your response going to be if you receive one? If you receive a level 1 notice in your zone where you're at, what are you doing? If you receive a level 2, what are you doing? I don't know. It might be different responses for different things. Level 3, go now, that's pretty easy. That means the danger is imminent. You got to move and move fast. When I work with agencies, and let's use the Ashland YMCA for an example, they don't just do their building on YMCA Way. They have kids up at Camp de Boer by Lake of the Woods. They also have kids in the Talent and the Phoenix School District. And if we get an event around here, they've got to find ways to get the kids to a safe place so the parents can pick them up. And so we worked on a plan for them together, and we used the level 1, 2, 3 and had different criteria for each, for how they would respond. Would they close the gym at a level 1? Yes, they would. And so we designed this plan for them. We actually tested it in an exercise, and it's one of the first in the Valley for an organization to actually have a full evacuation plan with like a checklist of what they're going to do. I'm trying to impress this upon our other agencies that maybe haven't designed these plans yet, because the Ashland Y one is a good template. So you, in your home, you know what you need? You need a plan for level 1 on like, this is what I'm going to do if I hear a level 1, because basically a level 1 says there's danger in the area, but you're not necessarily in the path. You don't have to go, but if you don't feel comfortable, if you or your loved ones can't move quickly, or you feel like, you know, I'm just going to go ahead and head south because I know the fire's coming from the north, that's okay. It's not against the rules. But a level 1 is just bringing to your awareness something's going on, pay attention. The level 2 is a little more serious. So who here remembers the September 4th fire just a few months ago? If you were around town, we had a fire that was on I-5, and if I'm going to go back here, I'll even show where it was, just off the, so if you, I don't know if everybody can see, and I'll try not to stand in the way, but this is I-5, and then right down, there we go, thank you. And then right down here is the exit, and just south of the exit, a fire was started, and the wind, while it wasn't very strong, super important that the wind wasn't strong that day. It's one of the reasons why we were able to put it out and stop it. The wind was blowing this way. So we sent, and the flames were big enough, they were threatening homes, there were people in the way of it, so we created a level 3 zone. And you can't see it here, it got cut off. This is 543, but this is actually 542. We sent a level 3 for anybody that was living in this area. And because the wind was blowing this way and our firefighters hadn't like cut the head off quite yet, hadn't stopped it yet, we put a level 2 here. So all residents that were in those areas got those messages. And if you got those messages on your phone, I'm super curious, like what did you do? Yeah, all right, so super interesting, and the alerts were accurate. It's just how you take them in. Nobody's used to receiving these. May we never be totally used to receiving these and like make it normal, right? All right? Hopefully we'll never have to send them again, but if we could show the map again, because this new numbering scheme was unfamiliar to most of us around Ashland, and the first one we sent had 542, we did receive a call from somebody that said, I saw that Zone 5, Zone 4, and Zone 2 were all told to evacuate, and that doesn't make any sense at all. And so this is not a perfect system, and yet this is why we do outreach, we do public education, we try to talk about this, and hopefully with time we all get more used to it. Forgive yourself if it was confusing. Forgive yourself if it was like, if you didn't know what to do or if people got upset. Forgive the people who are trying to do their best to give you the... And so the best thing we can say is that it gave people practice, and most of the folks that I talked to then said, yeah, you know, like we were in Zone 541, we grabbed our go bags, we put them in the car, like we got our pets, we even had dog food stuff ready to go. Like some folks were ready, and that's reassuring, but some folks were also like, oh, you know what, I've been meaning to do that go bag. Today I'm gonna do it. And so it was a good training session. Yes, ma'am.
Food, because
okay.
I believe in food first.
Okay. I
had a go bag too.
I'm attached to a family that I think believes in food first too. I'm starting to think that way as well. All right, so but let's get back. So my recommendation to you is know your levels, and as you design your own response, because there's a good chance that in an event, a big fire event, and even on the September 4th event, all the firefighters, all the cops, they're all out there. If you get an additional 911, or if you think that you're going to call 911 and say, hey, I need some help, there may be nobody coming. So what we're doing is getting ready for that. What we're doing is getting ready to work with our friends, our neighbors, and come up with our plans so that we can execute those plans. So level 1, 2, and 3, I recommend you have one for each. And if it's the same for each one, great. Your plan is simple. Like I said, some people, if they get a level 1, they're out. So make a plan for each level. Here you go. We're going to talk a little more about which way you go and why. Why can't Emergency Manager Kelly just say, everyone go down Tolman Creek Road? Because that might not work. I don't always know even. I know as much as I know at the time, as information's coming in, as responders can feed to me so that I can give you the best decisions. Ultimately, you are responsible for making the decision as to which way you're going to go and stuff too. But I'll give you some tips based on our weather around here. Okay, let's talk about information management, because you're going to need it. You need as much good info as you can get to make the best decisions so that you can enact your plan and get out of the way of whatever's coming, okay? Where should you get your information from? Oh boy. I recommend highly, sign up for emergency alerts if you haven't already. Sign up for the opt-ins, which are super easy. But there's the Everbridge accounts that we have that you can get online. You can get them through the City of Ashland webpage. You can get them through Jackson County emergency management web pages. Sign up for those. They ask a bit more information. The opt-ins are easy, and I could give you the history as to why Ashland went for those first. Back in the day in 2016 and 17, when we were trying to decide what emergency messaging system we wanted, and just remember, a text message is one thing. We're not hinging everything on the text alerts, right? We need much more information. We need more pathways to get the best information. Text is one way to do it. It's a good way when it works. So the opt-in is, that's fun. Opt-ins for Ashland is you're going to make a text message to 888-777. That's our little proprietary number in the Everbridge system. And the message portion of it, you're going to type 97520 if you haven't already, and you're going to send it. And what's going to happen a few seconds later is you're going to get a message from Nixle. That was the old messaging system. And maybe the quickest way to explain it is Everbridge is the overriding company, and Nixle is kind of underneath it right now. So they still call it Nixle sometimes, even though it's really Everbridge. You type 97520, you send it, you'll get a confirmation. Or if you're already signed up for it, it'll just say, hey, you're already in our system, and you're good. Now, this is incredibly useful because anytime I'm going to send an emergency message or an advisory or an evacuation notice, I'm going to include the 97520 group. If you have an Everbridge account, it actually geolocates your address. And so when I send messages, I can put what's called a geofence around an area on a map. So only the folks in that area would get that. Now, why would I do that? I would do that for if there's a serious police action going on in one part of town that not everybody's going to interact with, but maybe people in that area need to know about. Or if there's a big water line break that's going to block traffic on a hillside neighborhood, I'm just going to send it to the people that are in that area that would be affected. I'm not going to blast the whole 97520 because people don't need that on their phones, just the people that need to know. But the 97520 is just a big blast. Now, I don't know if you were paying attention before you came to this lecture tonight, but we got something from Klamath.
Yes.
Now, this is the second time in about a month that this has happened, and I know the Klamath County Emergency Manager, and I did call him the first time, and I said, hey, how'd you send something to our group? And he gave me an answer, and I said, well, let's talk about it. Let's figure out what you're doing. And they just did it again, so now I've got my county emergency manager going to give them a call, and they're going to figure it out. So hopefully we won't be getting any more Klamath messages. There's never a day off. The other two opt-ins we have are watershed. Does anybody know what the watershed's for? Watershed is for any time we do a prescribed burn in our forests up above us there because our water supply is up there. And we are trying to manage and protect the forests up there by doing some underburns, by clearing fuels, because if we get a major wildfire up there, we want to be able to fight it and stop it because it's going to save our water. Our water supply is probably one of the most important things we have. So the watershed group receives text alerts for when we're doing prescribed burns, and if we're going to have days where we might get some smoke inundation in our neighborhoods and our areas, then we will also send that message through the watershed opt-in. So pretty useful little utility on that one. And then finally, for severe weather, like winter weather or extreme heat or smoke inundation days where our AQI is above 150. Then we have a severe weather shelter that we stand up in Ashland, and we'll send out a message to anybody that's signed up for this. Now, what happens if you sign up for one of these and you're like, my phone's blowing up too much, I don't want them anymore? All you have to do is in the message line is type stop and send it, and you're out. If you do it by mistake and you're like, I did it to the 97520 and I want to keep getting those, all you got to do is retext to 888-777-97520 and you start back up again. Anyway, it is easy. It's easy to start it and stop it. The 97520 is actually really good for anybody who's just traveling here for a few days. Maybe they're coming to see some shows or a play or go to the restaurants. So just to know if there's going to be a serious message sent out or something, then you can text that 97520 and you'll receive any important evacuation notices.
So if you sign up for the 97520, do you get the watershed and the shelter automatically?
No, you got to type watershed and send that to 88877.
In a separate text?
Yes, separate text. Yes, ma'am.
But I still get the messages of all the controlled burns.
Okay, well, you probably signed up for it then.
Yes.
So sometimes at the beginning of the season, in order to get more people to sign up for the watershed, we'll do a 97520 blast because for the fire season when it begins, everybody's a little amped up already. We're a little concerned for smoke because we all had Almeda and all the years of smoke. And so sometimes at the beginning of the season, we'll say, hey everybody, guess what? We're about to do some burns. And if you want more of these messages, text Watershed.
Well, and one thing on that Klamath
Yeah.
notification, I mean, it's winter time now, however, a lot of people do go up to Klamath for the Amtrak.
Yeah, for the train.
And you
For sure.
kind of catch the bus at Safeway if you take the bus. So
Yeah.
in the summertime, it would be good to know because you might be traveling up there to pick someone up.
Yeah, maybe. It's not supposed, they're not supposed to be doing that yet, but we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, it could. There's always a reason why we might. All right, next slide. Information management, then again, let's just keep finishing this one off. NWS is National Weather Service. We have some pretty great weather in the valley, and if you're not paying attention to National Weather Service, you should. You need to go to their website, look for their hazards and warnings, and because they're going to show you our red flag days or our red flag periods, which are high temperature, high winds, and low fuel moisture. And when we have those days, those are the days to be ready for a potential fire. Those happen during fire season. And they just designed a new thing that was based on tornado warnings in the Midwest. They call it a PDS. And the naming committee was out for this one. It's a particularly dangerous situation. And that is like a red flag day, but worse. It's when the winds are even higher than what would be a red flag day. And so the very first PDS for wildfire was issued right before the Palisades and the Altadena fires and stuff.
And during.
Yeah, so we haven't had one for our area yet. It may happen at some point, and it's new for our area, but if you live in Tornado Alley, you've probably seen them and you're like, I've seen a PDS before.
So it would come across as PDS?
Yeah, the National Weather Service would send out something that
Yeah.
says, hey, this is a PDS, and then you'd have to say, what's PDS? Like,
Yeah, it's
why
a
would
new
anybody-
designation.
All right.
Can I make a humble request?
Yeah.
Because everybody's just talking in the middle of the.
Oh, right, we're supposed to hold
It's okay.
questions.
No, well, if you would like to do it this way, I'm totally open to working with it. But in order for me to get clean audio and help the people with the recording, what would be helpful is I've got a question. Then I can switch on the room mic, switch off the room mic. It works for you here. And also our recording is going to be significantly improved. And this way you can go back and view it, send it to your friends. Your questions, I'm sure, are very helpful for people. So
Everybody
if you
got
can say
that?
ask it, I've got a question, then I'll turn it on. The mic.
Cool. Let's
Thank
work
you
with our
so
tech
much.
people.
I
They make all the
appreciate
magic happen. If we didn't have their wizardry, none of this would work.
We're a team.
Okay. All right. City of Ashland web pages also have live news feeds, and so when I was hired as our emergency manager, the City of Ashland also made the investment in a communications officer. And between she and I, if I'm pushing out emergency notifications or advisories, she's also using our web page, our newscasts, our social media pages that the City of Ashland has, and so the most updated information will be coming through those. There are other places to get information though. And I also want to highlight my Jackson County emergency management partners are also quick to put up notifications and notices. Jackson County Sheriff's Office as well. They are the primary agency in those other outlying Jackson County zones that would be issuing evacuation orders. And so Jackson County Emergency Management, Jackson County Sheriff's, City of Ashland, those are good trusted sources. Now, I don't talk much about other apps. There are weather apps out there. There are other like fire apps and things. And so I say if you like what you see on those, great. And yet I'm a little dubious to endorse any one of them because I've seen, even on social media, where somebody hears something on radio traffic, maybe they were listening in, and we have bleed over from other agencies. And so a couple of years ago, we had a wildfire that was out on Eagle Mill Road. At the same time, out in the Applegate, there was a small wildfire that was going. And someone heard radio traffic that likes to listen to radio traffic, and they heard someone on that radio in Applegate say, "It's blowing through the lines and it's getting away from us." And so that person posted on a social media channel that lots of people were watching that the fire on Eagle Mill was out of control and homes were threatened and it spun everything up. And those of us that knew that the fire was going out, that the firefighters on scene had said, hey, can handle, that's a good update from a firefighter to say, hey, can handle with units on scene. And then we were like, what is this? Okay, so we live in the age where it's not intentional misinformation sometimes, but you gotta vet your source of where you're getting it from. So I like trust but verify with many things of information. So I aim towards my City of Ashland, my Jackson County Emergency Management, Jackson County Sheriff's. The other apps that are out there are some of them are really cool. Like they show wind speed, they show AQI, they show evac zones. That's good. Although I'll say that the one that I think a lot of people are using and that they're talking about in LA, that one particular app during the September 4th fire, remember how I said we had a level 3 and a level 2? Some clever tech person took that map and put both zones at level 3 and then spread that as a screenshot on the thing, and that spun people up as well too. So shame on them for that. Don't ever do that. None of us would ever do that, but some of that stuff is out there. So again, if you see that on the app, I just want to point you toward more trusted sources because the best information is going to be coming from them. Doesn't mean it'll always be wrong. It doesn't mean it's going to be wrong all the time. It just means double check. Okay. Resource management. We've made it all the way to resource management. Now we're going to talk about what we're doing to make sure that we can handle the next hour, the next 5 hours, the next 24, 72. Does anybody know what FEMA stands for? It actually stands for Few Expect Much Action. And whenever I get to work with FEMA folks, it's like cops and firefighters. We have a little banter back and forth, and I do enjoy my FEMA folks. But someone at FEMA has done a really good job with ready.gov. And they have created lists and checklists, simple, easy to read. It's in multiple languages. So it's super accessible. And these are some of the ones that I would highlight. I do a talk at the Senior Center when we talk about this. And so the very first one I have is the ready.gov older adults. And it's a checklist of 1, 2, 3. And the first thing you do in the lessons is like, you assess your own risk. It asks you really good questions like, what are the hazards in your area? Okay, well, we have fire. We can have flood. We can have earthquake. We can get wind events and winter storm events. And so from there, then it says, okay, for each of these events, like what would you need to sustain your life? What would you need to sustain your home or your friends? Because again, so it just asks those questions. And then level 2 is like, what do you need then in order to fill some gaps in your own response for that? So great resources, ready.gov. And so they also tell you how to build a kit. If you want more information on that, we're going to be doing a series of workshops for wildfire preparedness in the city. And I'm going to have a few very good CERT folks that have designed kits and can show you what their kits look like and stuff. Like it just takes a little bit of time out of your day to put one of these together. And I can tell you during fire season, if you're feeling freaked out, as we all do, I do too, especially on days where the winds are high and I know it's hot and dry and we haven't had any rain, just the act of like organizing my kit or like pulling things out and putting it in, it makes me feel a little better because at least that's something in my control that I can do, right? And then finally, putting your plan together. I think the ready.gov plan is decent. I'm aiming people more towards think about what you're going to do with each evacuation level and design how you're going to respond from there. Okay. The State Department of Emergency Management. For years, we've been talking about being 72 hours ready, and I can even remember talking about this with citizens and alike. And then this year, the state really started pushing out the be 2 weeks ready, and this is not this is not new. My bad. This was around 10 years ago, but this year the state actually published a full booklet that has like 7 sections, and it's accessible in multiple different languages, and it gives you one of the things that I use in training, which is a scenario. It says, hey, it's day 2, and the children are thirsty. What have you done to prepare for getting fresh water? And then it makes you go, well, what would I need to do for that? And so you start listing out the things that you can do and should do to do that. It's a really good tool. I'll be pushing this this summer for sure. And then as long as our team here with the Ashland Metaphysical Library is able to put this presentation out there, those links should be clickable. And I don't know how but yes.
They're going to be on our YouTube channel, which you can get to from our website if you don't need that, or you can go to YouTube. It's the RVML Resource Center.
Cool. And all these links, I verified them. They go to the right page and stuff too. And so it takes a little bit of time out of your day. Great. Finally, I would be remiss if I didn't mention, as far as part of resource management, taking care of the place you live. And so the City of Ashland and the fire department has invested a lot of time and personnel and just work into how to make your home space, no matter where you live, no matter how you live, how to make it less likely to catch on fire. Now, is anything ever going to be fully fireproof? No. But if you do some of the things that my friends in fire adapted communities with the fire department talk about, and you go to their site and you read their materials, and you call my friend Brian Hendricks at the fire department and you say, hey, I got some questions about this. I love lavender and I want to plant lavender everywhere. And Brian will be like, well, okay, you can plant it. You just don't want it within 3 to 5 feet of your house. We had a workshop with Boise State University researchers who are doing a study down here about how people respond to wildfires. And part of what they are delivering for us was they did a home hardening workshop. And one of the things that the researchers said that was stuck in my brain, which I like, so I'm going to share it with you, maybe it'll stick in yours, is she said, for plants, if it's fragrant, it's flammable. Now, all plants will burn at certain temperatures, but if it's fragrant, it's got oils, which means it burns hotter and will burn quicker. And so think about your own landscape around your area. If you love lavender, I get it. It's nice, but it doesn't need to be right up next to your house. Okay? See my friends at Fire Adapted Ashland. All right, so other things in your plan. This is where we talk about the long game, and we're kind of in the home stretch of what we're going to talk about here tonight. And I actually missed number 6, but I'm going to cover it. This is what you do as an emergency manager. You're always on this wheel, and what we're talking about tonight is doing preparedness. But I try to get people prepared, and then we have the event, which then we respond to, and we use all of our resources to try to stop whatever the disaster is that's going, and we do the best we can. We stand up for as long as we can and do it. And then once the damage is done, then we start working to try to recover. Try to get people shelter, food, and water. Try to get them clothes and make sure that they can take care of themselves. And then if they're out of their homes, try to get them back to their homes in the safest possible way. Then we try to do some more prevention work so we don't have the same event again. And then the protection ones, it's more in the preparedness piece. That's an older graphic. My recommendation to you is that as you do this, if this feels overwhelming, because there's lots of resources out there, and which one do I pick first? And how I'm freaked out just thinking about getting an evacuation notice. Okay, yeah, I get it. So share the load with people. Connect with your friends, neighbors, family, someone who you know is probably going to be in the same situation you are, and talk about what they're going to do. See if you can have some discussions around that. And then when you do start coming up with a plan, you say, well, excuse me, normally in the mornings, if you live around Ashland, our normal wind pattern is that the wind comes from uphill, from kind of southeast of us, and it blows towards Medford. And then in the afternoon, this is in summer mostly, something heats up and turns it all around and it comes back towards Ashland from Medford. That is the normal wind pattern we have. In some of our major fires, that southerly, southeasterly wind is hot and fast and dry and bad, and you know it when it's there. Like when we had the day of the Siskiyou Fire and the Oak Knoll Fire, we had those winds, and I think everybody knew it. That's the day that you need to be ready for something. So know the weather, and then which way are you going to go? That's where I'm heading with this. So if the wind is blowing towards the north, where's the fire going?
Toward the north.
Toward the north. Great. So what might be the better direction for you to go?
Toward the south.
Go to the south. Depending on where the fire is, depending on where you are, if the fire's in front of you and coming at you, you probably need to just keep going that way. But if it's not, and you have the option, then you're going to go south. If the fire is coming from the Medford towards Ashland wind, and it's coming this way, which way? You're going to go south. If it's blowing that way, you're going to go north. Anyway, all right, so we don't always know, though. Okay, so let me get down to the list here. Take steps to identify and solve your problems. If you do some of the things in the list, you can start thinking about the water, food and shelter, clothing, any like items of comfort you might need if you have to leave your house. I like a big, thick book myself, a deck of cards, something that's going to not just be disaster focused, but something that like community can sit around and distract themselves from a little bit so that we can all take a breath. Train for the event. Practice it. Think about when you were in school or if you were in a workplace where they had fire drills. When have you done your own evacuation drill? And just practice your route. If you do even a little bit of that kind of training, you will be better in the event. Just like a firefighter that trains and practices something, then when stress hits, you can fall back at least on some of the training you had. And so I had a really mean fire chief mentor. He was cruel and angry all the time. And when I was a rookie, and we would go into different buildings to do an inspection or whatever we were there for to do a training, he would look at me and he'd go, "All right, rookie, give me your second way out." And then I would have to, he would say, the way we came in is blocked. Find the second way. And so I would have to design in my head, or with just barely knowing where I was at, where the next exit might be. And so every room I went into, I got trained. I still have that to this day, because if that door's blocked, I know I can go out the back door over here, because there's an exit back there. And so what I want you to do in your evacuation training is think about your normal route and practice that. And then go back home and then pretend your normal route is blocked. And find another way. Find another way to go. So think of my old cruel fire teacher, and hopefully it'll teach you something. Small steps add up. Again, I said it could be overwhelming, and it is. Just take small bites out of this, and gradually, if you do a few things over a few weeks, over a few months, you're going to be way more ready for our next fire seasons. Review and adapt as needed. I have a story about that, but the final one I have is during the Almeda Fire, there were moments. I can tell you, I was in the command post. It was probably 2 a.m. The fire had already eaten through most of Talent and was eating Phoenix. And I had a couple of sheriff's officers come into the command post. And sheriff's officers around here, they're big. They're meat-eating, big dudes. And they were crying. And I was like, oh, it must be from the smoke. But no, they were actually sobbing and sad. And they said, "Kelly, you need to put..." And I had a tactical board with all this stuff on it, trying to track resources, and we were requesting stuff from the state, and the state was like, "We got nothing." And we're like, "No, you do. You need to send something. We're losing 2 towns," because there were 12 other fires going on in the state too, but we still managed to get some resources from the state. And they said, "Kelly, you need on your tactical board, there's probably going to be about 40 people that are going to be dead in this particular area of Phoenix because they refused to leave, because they refused to evacuate, because we had badges and they said, 'You can't tell us what to do.'" And they had fire blowing over their heads, starting to eat their homes. And the officers are like, "You've got to be kidding me. You need to get out of the way." And so they left and they came to the command post to tell me. And so I remember staring at them for a second and going, okay, a little space on the board here, 40. And what area, guys? Okay. And I wrote that down. And then I thought back to years of training that I had, and actually worked with some people that worked the Katrina hurricane. And they talked about if you have a large number of dead bodies, you need freezer trucks so that they don't decompose. And so I remember writing freezer trucks with a question mark on the board. Now what actually happened is that only 3 people died in the Almeda Fire. And one of the reasons that that happened is because in spite of what happened with the sheriff's officers and their experience with the people that they encountered and stuff too, is that kindness matters. And people helping people saved way more lives than the responders did. Cops saved a lot of lives, firefighters saved a lot of lives, but people helping people saved way more. So take that to heart. Okay, adapt. Things Almeda taught us, resources are limited. You don't have enough firefighters, enough cops, enough streets and electric department people to respond to all these things. We are somewhat on our own in some of these things. So do the pre-work. Do it before the event. We used to joke that for a lot of our calls, especially the big ones, that we had never seen before, never faced before, you just put on the helmet and suddenly we know exactly what to do. That's not true, it's a myth. And then adapt. This is one of my favorite stories, and this picture is actually from that area of where it happened. And what you see here is an engineer with Ashland Fire and Rescue. He's just retired, he's a good friend of mine, and he's turning on the hydrant and the water system is failing. And so it's one of the saddest things when the water doesn't fill the hose. But in spite of this, they're using tank water, and they've set up a couple of ground monitors, like nozzles that they can turn on and walk away from that'll spray the building. And Captain Foss was the lead of this crew of 2, an engineer and a firefighter, and Captain Foss. And he came up to me during the event, because we were still fighting after 24 hours, and he talked about this, and he said, I didn't have a slide for this. In an old military training, and sometimes in fire leadership school, they would talk about RPDM. And RPDM is rapid prime decision making, and it was a science that was led by the military, and it was basically back in the days when we had slides, and slide trays and things that you could watch your vacation on. They would talk about every human has experiences, and those experiences create slides. And so when you are faced with something that you're not sure what to do, you start taking slides out of your experience deck and going, does this match? No. Does this match? And you find the one that matches closest to it, and then you make decisions and go. And so when we talk about this in the fire service too, Justin said, he comes up to me in the command post and he says, hey, I didn't have a slide for this one. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, so here's what we had. If we go back to the picture real quick, there's 2 rows of townhouses here. This is the carport for the second row that was this way. And this whole row of like 4 or 5 townhouses that go deep into a flag lot area, and then 4 on this side. All of those were on fire, and smoke and fire was blowing towards the unburned ones, and they were not on fire yet. And my captain was like, well, okay, we can actually protect the exposed ones. We can get them wet. We've got just enough water. We know that the water system's struggling right now, but we can make this work, and we can save these other homes. So they're doing it, and it's working. And then he's checking out his people. He's watching the flames from the other one. And they're getting big, but they're going to be okay. They've got enough water to keep the building cool, and they're fine. And he hears an explosion. Boom. He stops and he looks around and he hears another one. Boom. And it's coming from the other side of the unburned townhouses. And he's like, what could possibly be doing that? So the folks that had left did a good job. There was some training at the time that said, hey, leave your doors unlocked in case firefighters need to get in and fight your fire. And so my captain went towards one of the unburned homes there, and he opened the door, and he could see all the way back to a sliding glass door, and he could see that there were flames kicking up on the back side of the building. And so he came out the sliding glass door to look, and down on the side was a gas meter that had exploded and was now burning up the side of the building. And one row over, one fence over, another gas meter had exploded, and as he's standing there looking at that, a third one blows. We had never seen this before. A gas meter that was completely uninvolved in fire around it exploding. And we figured out what happened. And we didn't have a slide for this one. We lost all of those condos too. We did lose those. But when they laid in the utilities in this, the gas feeder for all the residences went right down the middle of this driveway and then went underground and behind the building. And what happened was there was so much fire from these other ones, it burned down through the pipes and then burned across and underground and up the back and blew up the gas meters. That's a new one. Even the water system failing was new on us too. And there is a story of the fight along Talent Avenue where had it crossed Talent Avenue, it would have taken the rest of Talent. And in a moment, a former Ashland Fire Chief, David Shepard, who's a former Marine, very strategic thinker, I actually ordered him to go out there, and he was my boss, so that was awkward. But they designed a plan with the failed water system to protect at least the other half of Talent while half of Talent was going to burn, because there was just no way to do it. And that'll be another story for another time. So water system failures, gas meter explosions, and so what's the lesson? It's adapt. A friend of mine now who I've met through lots of emergency work, his name is Sheriff Corey Honey. He is the sheriff for Butte County. Butte County lights on fire almost every year now. And so in 2017, he led the evacuation for the Oroville Dam disaster. That's 2017. Not many people remember that. I remember it because it was on the news. But then in 2018, we had the Camp Fire, which took Paradise. And he led the evacuation in that. He's a very experienced gentleman. And he came and taught all of our local responders like what they did and how they did and what best practices they could teach about evacuations as a responder. And one of the first things he said is, no plan survives first contact. So make your plans, trust that they're going to work, but when they don't, minimize the time that you're frustrated and adapt and move purposefully. Okay. My lesson to you. Who's minding the store? We all are, and we all have to help each other out. When responders are responding, who's left? I talked about Almeda Fire and then open chain. It was quite a week. Incidents are becoming campaigns. That is what we're seeing now. These incidents that, they should end within the first day that they start, but they don't. They get bigger and bigger, and that's what all municipalities, all cities, all across the United States, we're all being faced with this now. Things that we thought we were going to be able to handle, they stretch into days and weeks and stuff. So we need to be preparing for this kind of stuff. 911 isn't going to be enough. What can we do to prepare? Do your pre-work, play the long game. So one of my cruelest instructors always gave homework at the end of a good talk. And so here's, do one of the following by next Tuesday. And bonus, if you can, do two. So the first one is Master Kung Fu, because you would look really cool. No? Okay, find the cure for cancer. I'd love that. I hate cancer. I'm tired of it. Number 3, find your nemesis, earn their trust, and then vanquish them, preferably with magic. That's very Ashland. I threw that one in there. And if you can't do any of those, then try the next ones. Make your own evacuation plan and practice it. Maybe that's more doable, although Kung Fu is pretty sweet. Put together a to-go kit and keep it handy. If you have one already, like if you've heard this and you're like, stop talking about go kits, go through it. Look for stuff that's expired and replace it. Put something new in it. Make it exciting. And then make a communication plan for if communications fail. What we're learning is that these systems that we have with these events, even though we've set up and prepared well, sometimes they fail. Okay, adapt. Figure out what you're going to do. So in the September 4th fire, a gentleman that works for our water treatment plant, he said, we knew exactly what to do, and like our cell phones weren't working or something like that. But like my family said that when we got the notice that I'm not saying this correctly, they already had the plan for like if the communication failed, they know their meeting place. So for them, if they went south, they were going to go down to like the viewpoint that's just before Wairika, and that's where they would meet and then gather up and then decide what to do from there. If they go north, they have a place in Talent that they all go meet. And he's like, when I got that evacuation notice and I'm way up in the canyon at the water plant, he's like, I'm good. I know my family's going to do exactly that, and I'm going to meet them at this next place. So you can do that too. All right, I would entertain some questions now too, if you have some, or thoughts or stories, because
I just have a question regarding current political situations and how this is even more crucial because there's no funding for the Forest Service, the people
Sure.
that maintain all this, and the firefighters.
I think first the lesson is, of course, is that who's minding the store? It's us. In the Almeda event, I can remember, like in the first 15 minutes, I trained all my life for an incident like this, and I'm doing everything that needs to be asked for, helicopters and all the stuff. And I was being told that there wasn't anything, and that was frustrating. And that just meant that, well, we still had to do something. We couldn't just, okay. And so we did. I want to say, and I don't remember who it was that said this. I want to give credit to Elizabeth Warren. She said something about, look, in the current situation with the federal government right now, just understand that you, with your local municipality, and then with your counties, and then with your state, you have a lot of resource and energy and talent that can get things done. So work as much as you can in those. And it'll protect you from this, because sometimes they don't come even when they should. So I think that's the best response I have for it. I know that I feel urgent, the need to double down on everything I'm doing here locally to get my local community ready to go. And it really all starts with us. Yes, ma'am.
You spoke about the time when there were 12 fires all over. I heard that a lot of those were set purposely.
They weren't.
They weren't?
No,
None of them
some of them were utilities. I think ours was human caused, but was it intentional? Did they intend to do what happened? No. It's somebody that doesn't have quite the right wiring. And in the investigation to find out what happened in Almeda, there were 3 possible leads. One was witnesses said that there was some guy that was yelling down there by the BMX park and throwing fireworks. Another witness said there was a guy that was yelling at kids to throw fireworks. And then the other one was one of the people that died in the Almeda fire, which was an unhoused person that had a campsite across the creek and down a little ways, and he got burned over. There was no signs that he could have even lit the fire and then ran across the creek and then laid down where he was in his sleeping bag just taking a nap. So none of those leads panned out. We also had the gentleman on the far south end of town by Immigrant Lake, and this is a fabulous story that Ashland News reported on, because Green Springs Fire was coming down Highway 66 to come join the fight with us. And I know the chief pretty well. We've been in a few foxholes together, fought a few fires together, and he's great. And I'm at my command post. We've got more fire than we know what to do with. We know it's going to keep going, and so we're swinging as much as we can. And I have 5 radio channels I'm listening to for my resources out in the field, and then I'm trying to get organized and thinking about the next 12 hours. And somewhere, the chief of Green Springs comes across one of those channels, and he says, "Hey, Kelly, we're driving by Immigrant Lake. There's like a car on fire out here. Do you want us to stop and put it out?" and I everything stopped. And there was lots of radio chatter, but I looked to see which radio it was. And I'm standing at my rig, I got my tactical board out, the wind is just buffeting us, and I step out from around my vehicle and I can feel it just pushing on my chest, and I'm looking towards the south because I've been watching Talent and the giant smoke column that's there, and I'm thinking, if that fire takes off, that's gonna take Ashland. And so I grabbed that mic and I said, yes, put it out, and let me know when you've got it, and what else do you need? And so he figured it out. The gentleman that did it had some mental health issues. He saw the column of smoke and thought, yeah, this is how I'm gonna reset my own life. I'm gonna burn my vehicle, which was my home. And that's what he did. He got really badly burned as well too, so he just made a bad choice. Was it intentional? He wasn't trying to make a coordinated effort to light fires. And there was other misleading reports of people starting fires. There was another guy in Phoenix, but I just think there's a lot of humans out there. They're not coordinating with each other. Some people just do that, like in the LA fires. There were some people that were like, yeah, hey, I like causing chaos. Thanks a lot.
So none of the 12 at the time of the Alameda were traced down to being arson?
Not that I know of. Some of them was utilities, and then arson is intentional, right? So people have to want to do it. The guy that burned his car, he intentionally burned his car. It was lucky that Green Springs was coming by when they did. Yeah, that's the one for the books. When that was going on too, there were reports, I can just remember news reports of somewhere up in Clackamas County for one of the big fires there. And there was a politically motivated misinformation campaign that said that some group of people was actually out there lighting fires, and none of it was true. And so that's the trouble with where you get your information from. If you're getting it from social media, just beware. Buyer beware on stuff like that. Unless you know the person and they're actually yeah, I saw it, I did it, and others can verify it, then take it with a grain of salt. And, there's a lot of humans, and humans sometimes make bad choices, even ones that had no intention of doing wrong. Any other questions on that? Yeah.
So what happened during that one at Almeda?
Yeah.
Because I was staying at the hostel on Williams, on Hersey.
Okay.
Off of that,
Williamson Way.
Williams and Hersey.
Williams, okay, yeah, all right. I'm
So
with you.
what happened is, because it happened so quickly, all the trucks came over, and so they couldn't get past 14. They had to get off. And so they all came down Hersey Street.
Mm.
And we were only on Be Prepared 1. And we're all sitting out there on the porch looking at the fire and looking at all these trucks, and it's like,
How are you going to get out?
we can't get out.
Yeah.
So where we're gonna go is,
Mhm.
go across the railroad tracks to,
We're doing a lot of work right now to try to improve our evacuation routes. We've partnered with ODOT, who has a plan now where they didn't used to, for how to manage the exits so that we don't get all the trucks coming into town like we did. And we've used their plan a few times now with some of the local events that have happened, like the September 4th fire. What happened in Almeda, it did not happen this time. So we have corrected some of that. One of the workshops that we're gonna do is gonna launch a community evacuation practice drill that I've got a crazy idea that I wanna do. And I've got ODOT to agree to it as well, because it's going to increase some traffic for a little bit of time. There'll be more on that. It's going to be coming in July, so I'll make sure I get a lot of press out on that, so that if you want to sign up for it and practice it, this will be a good day for it.
so if you're ready to go,
Yeah.
like say, you've only got, even at 1,
Mm-mm.
but at 2, if you wanna leave at 2 before you get to number 3
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
you can leave.
Yes,
correct?
of course. You can leave at 1. Yeah. There's a lot to cover in this, right?
Is there a way, sorry, this thought is just forming in my head, but is there a way that people that don't have transportation, that if they're in a situation and you have like room in your car, if they could get to X spot, where there's certain spots around town that anybody can drive by and say, I'll take people?
It's a great idea. We don't have an established process for that, but that's why I'm encouraging like people to start making friends and make those plans with each other. Not everybody has a car. Not everybody can drive.
My son was here by himself, he didn't drive, and he was stuck here. I was in the coast, and I got home, but I never made it because I was stopped in
Yeah,
Talent
'cause the
and
traffic
turned
was
around. And he was by himself on the roof doing this, and I'm like, what do? You don't, go to the neighbors, right?
I want to thank the Ashland Metaphysical Library for giving us this time to like share this. I want to thank our tech crew tonight too, who's kind of holding all the stuff together with the wizardry, and thanks, Dorina. And then thank each of you for at least listening. I hope you picked something up. If you've got other questions on it, last slide has my email on it, and I a lot of times I'm not the subject matter expert on all the things, but I know where to look for things, and I can connect you with the right people that can answer more of these questions, because really I think we all want to live here. I want to stay here forever. My dad grew up around here in these hills and mountains. I'd like to think that we could all make it through this every season. So thank you very much.
Thank you.